Hello everyone, welcome to my Session 8 teaching memo, the video version. It was a sad week in the Mawinnie-Sagan household. Dr. Laura's dad, who was sick for many years, passed away on Wednesday. He died at home, which was a good thing, with her entire family working shifts to take care of him. It was a very intensive process. While it was nice that he passed at home, strain on the family was at times overwhelming. He's in a better place now. The good news is that I had my family over for our annual pre-Thanksgiving get-together. They all go to their other in-laws for Thanksgiving, which is fine with me. I actually took a family selfie, which, believe me, was not an easy chore. And I have it here. I will show you. There we are. There's the whole crew. There's Dr. Laura. There's me in front. That's my daughter-in-law. That's my daughter, Kate. That's Kate's daughter, Reagan. That's Kate's daughter, Etta. That's my pseudo-grandson. That was Kate's stepson from her first marriage. Actually, her only marriage. So I've adopted him as my grandson. That's Elena, my son's adopted daughter. That's my son Dan there. This is Logan, his second adopted child. And this is Luke. That's his son by his recent marriage to Danielle. And this is Sophie, who's a middle school science teacher in Brooklyn at Horace Mann Middle School. So that's the good news. How about that snowstorm on Thursday? We had less than a foot here, but of course it wasn't expected. But the roads were a mess. Dr. Laura and Sophie were on their way home from Laura's mom's home in Schenectady, and they had to abandon the car about a mile from our house because they couldn't make it. Police were diverting traffic. It was a mess. I have a Jeep, and the reason I have a Jeep is because just for days like that. So I went and rescued them, and then a couple days later we got our car from the parking lot where it was. So that was an interesting day, a commute home. This is a short week for most of you. I know Dr. Laura has gets off Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I do not take days off, so it will be business as usual for Dr. Tom. So the holiday season is upon us. Black Friday is only 5 days away. I do not take part in that, neither does Dr. Laura. Okay, housekeeping. This past session, you needed to take your learning targets and create your selected response test. I would also advise everyone to start looking ahead to completing your vocabulary in your own words, which is due the last session, and the 3-part analytic summary, which requires you to reflect on your test creation process while using appropriate APA format and referencing the resources I have made available. Not all of them, of course, but the ones that you used. You should also be filling out your final baseline survey, which is another anchor activity. So now you have 3 anchor activities, which the first 2 should be pretty much almost done for you by now. With the baseline survey, only a couple more sessions to write about. I'm always concerned about people not participating in the group process of taking and giving feedback on the draft tests. I am giving credit for doing this as part of your final selected response test grade. Therefore, it is important that everyone is participating. Remember, what gets graded gets done. Many of you will be tempted to write me that people in your group have not taken your tests and given feedback. As the next session ends, I will be writing those students, your classmates, and you can also use the communication link. I will take you there right now. You can email your classmates if you go over here where it says tools/communication. I think I've mentioned this once before. If you click on that, you can scroll down, and where it says send email, you can send an email to anybody in your class. I believe everybody can do this, although maybe not. So you select users, and you see that all the users in the course come up over here, and you just click on one and hit the arrow, and you can write to that person. So that is what happens if people aren't responding in your group. And don't be too impatient. They have till the end of the week to do that, to give you feedback. So be patient. Don't write me until you're desperate, which may be tomorrow. I don't know. Remember, it's a modified discussion board feedback. So your posting your test is one, and then you have to respond, give feedback to and take 5 of your classmates in the SR test with feedback discussion board. So you only have to make 5 posts to get credit for A credit. Of course, you can take 10, but I know in one of my classes, I don't even know if there are 10 people still participating, my 23 class. So make sure you get your test uploaded so people can take them. Remember, you have to give feedback that is actionable. I know in the learning target discussion board, many of you were just saying, oh, those are wonderful targets, when they weren't wonderful targets. That is not helpful. When you tell people, oh, you're not going to hurt people's feelings if you help them. If you just bash them and say, boy, that target was terrible, without giving them help, then yeah, they will feel bad. And please don't do that. So I've added I should have added it before. This is in session 8, course materials. This Wiggins article, 7 keys to effective feedback. A feedback is shown to be a research-based tier 1 practice that improves student achievement immensely. So if you know how to give it and give it well, and now then teach your students how to give it, whoa, amazing stuff happens. So that's a tier 1 research-based strategy. So check out that article by Grant Wiggins, the late Grant Wiggins, by the way. He passed away a couple years ago. What else? Again, I mentioned there's a big difference between criticism, which only points out what is wrong, and supportive feedback, or helpful feedback, which points students in the right direction and helps answer that third question. Remember the 3 questions that Stiggins, Chapui, Stiggins et al. Talk about. Where am I going? Your learning targets. Where am I now? Formative assessment. And how can I close the gap? Feedback. So those are the 3 questions, and this feedback answers that last one. So in teaching students to give it, gets them to help each other answer that question. I also wanted to remind you that the select response test answered with feedback is being graded with the modified discussion board rubric. I just mentioned that. There are only 2 characteristics of quality. When you make your initial post, that has to be by Thursday to get A+ credit, has to be by Sunday to get A credit. And then the other one is to how many people you respond to and on how many different days. So if you respond to 5 people on 3 different days, you will get A credit. To respond to 10 people, you get A+ credit, but please don't go overboard to do that unless you really are an overachiever and you want to get an A+. But getting an A is a 4.0, an A+ is a 4.0. Keep that in mind. So I've graded your learning target discussion board. Some of you, I was waiting till today to do it because you hadn't made 6 responses, but so I was waiting for you to make responses during the week. Most of you didn't and that's fine. So I will finish grading those today, and I will start giving you feedback on your selected response test. So that's it. Don't forget to watch my assignment video. Oh, that isn't it. I have to talk about session 8. It appears that many of you did not read the item writing guidelines in Chipui at all. I'm seeing the same mistakes over and over again. Specifically when it comes to the fill-in section. Your fill-ins should be, you need to write a proposition, a statement that's true, okay? And then you leave out the key word. Now, your answer blanks should all be the same length. So if you have 5 fill-in questions, all your answer blanks should be the same. You should not give hints. So if the answer begins with a consonant, you shouldn't put an A. You should put an A, parentheses, N. So that does not give a hint. Your blank should be at or near the end of the sentence. Make sure you look at the grading rubric, which I have in this test creation materials, which is in session 7 and session 8. So the rubric is the first thing that you see when you open that document. This really gives you hanging indents. The matching is a 2-column format. Spelling and grammar are correct. Questions and answers are all on the same page. So this rubric really tells you what formatting questions and how you should be writing your each different item. Remember, there are only 4 question types: true, false, matching, fill-ins, multiple choice. There are no essay questions, no extended response questions. This is a selected response test. So some of you already have put in extended written response questions, and I yelled at you. That's okay. That's why we give feedback. That's why we're doing this process. This is an assessment for learning process. Okay, and make sure you watch my test creation video. You've heard me say this a million times. It's located in 3 or 4 different sections because I tell you how to do all of this. People are still struggling to make their targets specific and measurable. Remember, you are creating this test as if you were teaching the information in the handbook. You're not going to be teaching your students to match items, to fill in the blank items, answer true-false items. So keep that in mind. Many of you wrote great reasoning questions. I'm really impressed with it so far. But remember, write them as if the teacher is teaching. And those of you that are doing teaching scenarios, don't write it with the rubric language in mind. I've had to give feedback to a few of you for doing that. All the person has to do is look at what rubric you're talking about, rather than have to figure out what that teacher did and how it relates to that rubric. So write your scenarios as if the person is teaching, all right, or planning, or whatever, assessing, and giving feedback, or language demands. So that makes it a reasoning question. If you're just copying the rubric language in a scenario, that's not a reasoning question. All right. So there are other ways to write reasoning questions, as I mentioned, but for now it's important that you know it can be done. This dispels the myth that selected response tests only assess knowledge or memorization. I'll be giving you feedback on your draft during the week. Be patient. Don't submit your second draft on the next discussion board. I don't think I've opened it yet, but I will, to receive my feedback. Okay, make sure you watch my assignment video.